Chapter 137. Giving her face to slap. When Chu Qingya heard the name Lin Cixi, he cast a glance in her direction. He noticed that Lin Cixi's face was indeed different from before. However, his mind wasn't on Lin Cixi. It was on someone else, Su Yingxue. He knew that Lin Cixi's face had been healed by Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue's remarkable medical skills were even well known in the Imperial Medical Academy, and she had also entered his heart. Ever since his kidnapping, he felt as if he had been poisoned. He had no evidence, but he was certain that the person who had kidnapped him was somehow connected to Su Yingxue. When he had groggily awakened from his ordeal, the first figure that had come into view was Su Yingxue. He couldn't recall when it had started, but all he could think about now was the woman who used to pursue him, and then later treated him with cold indifference. His reason for waiting here today was to catch a glimpse of her, wearing the riding attire he had given her. He had a feeling that Su Yingxue would look stunning in that attire. Achoo! In the carriage, Su Yingxue sneezed multiple times. Jilan promptly handed her a handkerchief. "Miss, who's missing you so much?" Su Yingxue glanced at the red riding attire lying in the corner. "Cough, one don't particularly want to be missed like this. It would be best if people stopped thinking about me. Otherwise, she might not be able to restrain herself from giving those who missed her a resounding slap. Haha, one understand, Mississippi. It must be 7th Prince who's thinking about you. Otherwise, why would he be so eager to give you riding attire? But our miss looks even better in what she's wearing now compared to what he gave." Jilan snorted lightly, seemingly proud on behalf of Su Yingxue. The material in this attire might not be as good as what he gave, but it's more practical. Su Yingxue looked at her outfit with satisfaction. "Even though you didn't want it, why did you accept it?" Jilan knew that Su Yingxue wouldn't wear this attire. She wasn't going to fall in love with the past one. Su Yingxue wiped her nose, her voice buzzing slightly. "Because certain people are practically falling over themselves to flatter me. It would be quite awkward if one didn't accept it. Like Chu Qingya. Last time, I spared him and didn't teach him a lesson. And now he dared to bring clothes? How could she not extend her hand and deliver a good hearty slap?" Ziwei, concealed behind Su Yingxue's carriage, heard her words and felt a sense of calm. Only Jilan curiously leaned in front of Su Yingxue. Miss, how are you planning to give him a slap?" "One want to learn, Sob." Her miss was a master at delivering face slaps. Su Yingxue smiled and instructed her to bring out the clothes from the carriage later and keep an eye on them. All the carriages from the noble families had gathered at the entrance of Upper Forest Court. Su Yingxue knew that the chief guard today was Lin Outyan, which meant she would soon see Lin Cixi. Sure enough, she appeared in green riding attire, brandishing a riding crop as she dashed toward Su Yingxue. "Dr. Su!" Lin Cixi leaped out of the crowd. Her face was no longer swollen from acne. It now exuded a radiant beauty. Her hair was elegantly pinned up, and she wore iron wrist guards on both hands. As she approached, there was a touch of alluring charm about her. Coupled with her straightforward and loud voice, she now resembled a heroine. Su Yingxue hopped off the carriage and greeted her. Lin Cixi smiled upon seeing her. "Dr. Su, ever since one took your medicine, look, my face is completely clear of pimples, and my complexion has improved a lot." Chapter 138. Waiting in vain. Su Yingxue felt genuinely happy for her, and she asked Jilan to bring the clothes that Chu Qingya had sent. "This is the riding attire that 7th Prince sent me this morning. My current attire is decent, so I'll give this set to you." Su Yingxue smiled with her eyes forming crescents. Lin Cixi glanced briefly at the clothes and looked disdainful. "Sent by 7th Prince? Dr. Su, do you have a feud with 7th Prince?" Su Yingxue held back a laugh in her heart, but she had to ask. "Why do you say that? The fabric is luxurious, but it's not durable at all." Lin Cixi never controlled her volume when speaking, and the people around turned their heads to look at her. Of course, this included Chu Qingya, who had been waiting, and Chu Xiuwen, who was accompanying him. Chu Jinling, the gossip-loving soul, squeezed through the crowd and shouted from a distance, "Miss Lin, those are golden silk garments. Father only rewarded my 7th brother with 2. Lin Cixi turned to look at him and snorted. "So what if they're valuable? Today we came to Upper Forest Court to ride horses, shoot arrows, and hunt in the woods. These clothes will be torn soon after passing through the forest, let alone in dangerous situations. I'm afraid they won't even make it a full circle on the ground before they're ruined. Chu Jinling burst into laughter. Miss Lin, you're right. Su Yingxue also thought it made sense. Of course, she already knew about this, but she let Lin Cece voice it. She glanced at the clothes. Is it still useful? If not, we'll just have to discard it. It's not entirely useless. Dr. Su, I have a red-maned spirited horse, a pony without a saddle. Why not dress it up? Light, breathable, I bet it will like it. Lin Cece was straightforward and said whatever came to her mind. Su Yingxue waved her hand. All right, give it to your horse. Thank you, Dr. Su. Lin Cece happily draped the clothes over her pony and asked Su Yingxue if it looked good. Su Yingxue confirmed that it looked extremely good. As they enjoyed themselves, Chu Jinling laughed so hard that he almost fell off his horse. Haha, seventh brother's golden silk garments are now wrapped around a horse. Seventh brother, aren't you feeling heartbroken? Chu Jinling acted as if he couldn't see Chu Qingye's expression. Chu Qingye ignored him and rode his horse into Upper Forest Court in frustration. What a waste of waiting. Chu Xiuwen also left with a sullen face. As he passed by Chu Jinling, he couldn't resist a mocking remark. Ninth brother, don't laugh yourself out of breath. No worries, no worries. Third brother, why don't you go and appease seventh brother? Ha ha ha. Chu Jinling, never one to back down, left Chu Xiuwen with no way to argue. After Su Yingxue and Lin Cece finished adorning the horses, Lin Cece removed the clothes. Even my horse doesn't find this attire worthy. Dr. Su, this is even less fitting for you. She declared boldly. Su Yingxue was flattered, but she was even happier for her. With you no longer wielding a whip, you exude even more confidence than before. You truly radiate. All thanks to you, Dr. Su. My father said that if you bloom, the gentle breeze will naturally come. There's no need to bow and scrape to please others. We Lin family members can't do that kind of fawning. Just being ourselves is enough. Su Yingxue admired Lin Cece's candid personality. They walked side by side, and Su Yingxue smiled. Don't worry, you will have a bright future. She remembered that in her previous life, Lin Cece had married into an ill-fated family and passed away after a few years. Chapter 139. Make a deal with Sheng Ping. However, now that she could come back to life, Lin Cece would undoubtedly be able to change her destiny and make a new path for herself. Su Yura's carriage followed Su Yingxue's, and she observed the actions of Su Yingxue and Lin Cece. Seating in the carriage, she bit her lip and muttered, Su Yingxue, you don't know what's good for you. Exactly, miss. Not only did she not know what was good for her, she ruined the seventh prince's intentions and did not put you in her eyes. And that Lin Cece, she's ungrateful, forgetting how you consoled her when all the esteemed ladies looked down on her. Yuan Ruo defended Su Yuro from the side. Seeing the person alight from the other carriage, Su Yura's lips curled slightly. My mother told me to observe Su Yingxue closely today, so we'll do just that. Today, there were plenty of people ready to cause trouble for Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue had made arrangements with Lin Cece to go hunting in the forest after the noon banquet, to stretch their muscles and relax. However, now she had important matters to attend to. After Lin Cece departed, Su Yingxue softly called, Ziwei. The dark figure landed silently. Su Yingxue asked, where is Sheng Ping? To the east, about 5 miles away, at the edge of the woods. Ziwei's voice was hoarse. Is there someone accompanying her? Yes, a man. With a plan in mind, Su Yingxue headed east. Sheng Ping was pinned against a tree by Chu Xiuwen, and his hands began to wander. Feeling humiliated, Sheng Ping dared not make a sound. She clenched her lips tightly. Only after Chu Xiuwen found satisfaction did he release his grip on Sheng Ping. He forcefully turned her face and compelled her lips into a kiss. Don't always act so superior. You've been utterly used by me, yet you remain silent. Wait until tonight. Humph. A trace of malice glinted in his eyes. Leaving Sheng Ping behind, he turned and walked away, his gaze searching the hunting grounds for other potential prey he could catch. Su Yingxue stood to the side, waiting for Sheng Ping to tidy herself up before walking out slowly. Sheng Ping hadn't expected to encounter Su Yingxue here. A flicker of panic crossed her peach-like face. Su. Dr. Su. Su Yingxue offered a faint smile. Hello, princess. One happened to be nearby, taking a stroll, and one noticed you alone here. Is everything all right, princess? Su Yingxue's words sliced through Sheng Ping like a blade. From Su Yingxue's tone, Sheng Ping deduced that she hadn't simply been out for a walk. She must have witnessed what had happened. Sheng Ping closed her eyes in pain. Tears of humiliation welled up. Since Dr. Su saw, are you here to mock me? I'm not interested in that. Then you, Sheng Ping bit her lip. She couldn't read Su Yingxue's intentions. She had seen Chu Xiuwen mistreating her. Both she and Chu Xiuwen had given her a handle to hold on to. Yet now she remained so calm, showing no emotions at all, leaving Sheng Ping unsettled. Suspecting something, Sheng Ping inquired. Dr. Su, did you deliberately come to find me today to ask about your mother? Su Yingxue clicked her tongue. To be exact, I'm here for a deal with the princess. A deal? Confusion flickered in Sheng Ping's eyes. I will help the princess deal with Chu Xiuwen in exchange for you telling me about your mother and my mother. One want to know everything about my mother and your memories. Su Yingxue's composed demeanor demanded respect. Chapter 140. When did Chu Jinling jump out? Sheng Ping felt that in front of Su Yingxue, she was like naked prey, allowing her to freely scrutinize her. Her smile was tinged with sadness. It turned out she had already seen through her. And yet, she remained unaware that she was hoping to exploit this very vulnerability to plot against Su Yingxue. However, Su Yingxue's proposition was quite enticing. Dr. Su, Sheng Ping is willing to trade with you, but... Sheng Ping bit her lip, her face showing a hint of shyness. Sheng Ping knows these memories are rather insignificant. Asking Dr. Su to help me rid myself of Chu Xiuwen is causing you a loss. But one also want to ask for your help with one thing. Su Yingxue's expression turned cold. Princess, you acknowledge the insignificance, yet you still request? You should be aware that if Chu Xiuwen continues to pursue you, you'll face dire consequences. He's a prince of the royal family. Even if exposed, his punishment will be trivial. But you, a princess of a fallen country, if discovered, your reputation will be ruined. You won't be able to marry, and the emperor might even kill you to protect Chu Ziyuan's face. I understand. This isn't the first time I've been humiliated. I'm not afraid of death. But I have a single wish, one that only you can help me fulfill. It's my only wish. Sheng Ping knelt before Su Yingxue. Initially disgusted by Sheng Ping's deception, Su Yingxue's feelings softened as Sheng Ping knelt before her. Yet, she knew she couldn't let her compassion override her judgment. Her face remained stern. I will only help you deal with Chu Xiuwen. I won't assist you in anything else. Even if I want to see your highness again, will Dr. Su not be willing to help me? Tears streamed down Sheng Ping's pale face as she knelt, like petals tossed by the wind and rain, landing in the mud. It was pitiful. Su Yingxue hadn't anticipated this request. A pang of bitterness crept into her heart. She still needed to help her meet Chu Yihan. Her instinct was to refuse. However, Sheng Ping remained kneeling. She was once a princess of a country. Now she had no country and no home. Even as a princess, she was bullied pitifully. Get up. We can discuss future matters later. Su Yingxue extended a hand to help Sheng Ping up. Sheng Ping got up and wiped away her tears. Her smile remained as beautiful as blossoming peach flowers. Dr. Su, your kindness will be rewarded. If I can see your highness again privately in this life, 111 die without regrets. Su Yingxue was rendered speechless. It would have been better if she hadn't spoken. Her words seemed to have made her strangely want to fulfill Sheng Ping's request, leading her to die with regrets. Bah! Su Yingxue shook her head. What was she thinking? She wasn't as petty as Su Yuro. She wouldn't let anyone harm Sheng Ping. What a pitiful woman. Wow, my future sister-in-law, you can even tolerate this? You're so generous. Chu Jinling, the embodiment of gossip, exclaimed in amazement as he scribbled down notes with a pen. Ninth Prince, what are you doing here? Su Yingxue was surprised this time. When did this guy show up? Chu Jinling chuckled. I'm just gathering material. But don't worry, one didn't hear what you two discussed earlier. One only started taking notes when you mentioned my brother. What are you writing? Su Yingxue leaned in skeptically, snatching the paper from his hand when he wasn't looking. Hey. Be careful, that's my material. One need to produce another volume when one get back. My bookstore is waiting. Chu Jinling jumped up and down anxiously. Chapter 141. Is it the divine brush Ma Liang? Su Yingxue finished reading the manuscript in her hand, and realized that Chu Jinling had indeed recorded what Xing Ping had told her about wanting to meet Chu Yihan. But the story in the first few pages, oh my goodness! What was written there? The male protagonist was Chu Han, and the female protagonist was Ying Shui, a prince, and a marquis manor daughter. Wasn't this basically about her and Chu Yihan? Chu Jinling, what on earth are you writing? Su Yingxue immediately became furious, slamming the manuscript onto Chu Jinling's sunny and handsome face. Ouch, I can't see. The wet ink on the paper smudged Chu Jinling's eyes. He rubbed his eyes for a while before managing to open them. However, as soon as Su Yingxue handed him the manuscript, he had already slipped it into his embrace. By the time Su Yingxue wanted to destroy it, she felt awkward to get it from his embrace. Su Yingxue angrily reached out her hand to Chu Jinling. Give me the manuscript. I need to get rid of the evidence. Chu Jinling protected his chest as if guarding a treasure. Impossible. You can take my life, but not the manuscript. His life could be taken, but not his manuscript. The material on it was the source and soul of his creation. Without creation, this prince who ignored his duties would rather die. Hand it over. No. Hand it over. No. If my imperial uncle sees this, he'll get jealous. Auntie, you won't have a good time. Chu Jinling's proud and stubborn pout was somewhat similar to Chu Yihan's. But what was he calling her? Auntie. As a prince of the royal family, could you be a bit more mindful of your choice of words? Su Yingxue seized Chu Jinling's ear and scolded him. Chu Jinling yelled, Ouch, ouch, ouch. Why did you grab my ear? One didn't say anything wrong. The way you scold me is just like my imperial uncles. We're not related, so there's no need for a unified approach. I didn't call you the wrong thing. Su Yingxue almost spat blood onto Chu Jinling's face. Who the hell is related to your imperial uncle's family? If you keep spouting nonsense. If you keep pulling my ear, I won't have ears left to explain to father and mother. Chu Jinling didn't dare to fight back, speaking with a pout. Fine. Su Yingxue had forgotten. This prince before her was famously incompetent, but he was greatly favored. He had poured all his talents into being reborn. The emperor's genes, the empress womb, allowed him to be born without needing to fight for anything. He stood directly where others might spend a lifetime struggling to reach, without even seeing the starting line. Life was just that infuriating. Suppressing her anger, Su Yingxue let go of him, reasoning kindly. Ninth Prince, can we change your way of addressing me? Can you call me Su Yingxue or Dr. Su? Chu Jinling grinned in a mischievous and somewhat cheeky manner. No, I can't. Calling you auntie pleases my imperial uncle. When his imperial uncle was happy, he would inspire him to write a book, such as what he said to Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue, with a hand on her forehead, said helplessly. Then let's discuss something else. What I talked about with Princess Xing Ping earlier, don't include it in the writing. Don't let anyone, including your imperial uncle, know about it, okay? Chu Jinling crossed his arms, protecting the manuscript in his embrace. After seriously considering it, he replied, One cannot tell imperial uncle, but I still have to write it. I've already outlined it. The story progresses until the princess appears. I'm getting ready to send it for printing. The plot can't be changed. Su Yingxue was shocked by his words. Are you kidding me? Are you the reincarnation of the magic paintbrush Ma Liang? Chapter 142. How is he not as good as ninth brother? But Chu Jinling leaned in with a sly expression and whispered in her ear. Don't worry. I always write stories under a pen name. Besides you, no one knows it's me who wrote it. After all, it wouldn't be good if father found out. Su Yingxue responded with a mocking snort. You understand that the emperor will blame you if he finds out? Why don't you exhibit a bit of self-awareness as a prince? What was a prince even supposed to be doing? They could engage in scholarly pursuits, practice martial arts, and safeguard the realm. If things didn't work out, they could at least rely on their good looks to woo some girls. Furthermore, even if it was a matter of power struggle, a prince should join in and stir up some excitement, right? Otherwise, the emperor would be quite bored sitting on his throne. Chu Jinling playfully wagged a finger at her and continued. I have many siblings. I'm just the ninth in line. I can't excel in both literature and martial arts. There's already a crown prince, and my third brother and seventh brother are vying for the throne. One lack any advantage. The most I can achieve in this life is to enjoy the privileged status bestowed by my mother's noble rank and live a carefree life. Su Yingxue was rendered speechless. No issues there. He possessed all the self-awareness that a prince wasn't supposed to have. By the way, Auntie, you don't need to worry. No one will find out about this. And if you're willing to inspire me, I'll share half of the book sales profits with you. I can also share all the inside stories I know about Jiangdu City. Chu Jinling blinked mischievously, resembling more of a mischievous spirit than a prince. Su Yingxue rolled her eyes and let out a light snort. Are you a prince, huh? How much money could you possibly make from selling books? One don't even want it for free. What? Chu Jinling pouted, looking dejected. You wouldn't even accept several tens of thousands of taels of silver a year? Su Yingxue sprained her foot. She turned around, limping back to Chu Jinling's side, and assumed a serious expression. Your Highness, one Su Yingxue, am not someone who is motivated by money. One just want to make sure you enjoy writing. What kind of inspiration do you need? Auntie, you're too kind. I'll give you an additional share of the book sales profits. Chu Jinling patted her shoulder like an affectionate brother. He recorded every word she spoke, even if it was fabricated, as if he had stumbled upon a treasure trove. As they took their seats together, Chu Jinling's eyes continued to sparkle as he stuck close to Su Yingxue. He followed Su Yingxue to her seat, and everyone's gazes followed him. Chu Xiuwen was the first to speak with a chuckle. Marquis Su's daughter is truly extraordinary. She seems to have captured our ninth brother's attention. Over there is the women's seating area, and ninth brother is not someone easily swayed. His words were a veiled jab at Su Yingxue, implying that she lacked propriety by openly attracting the prince's interest. They seemed to be quite close. Chu Qingye clenched his teeth and shattered the white jade wine cup in his hand. Above them, the emperor took his seat with the concubines. Chu Mingyuan had also heard Chu Ziyuan's words. When he looked over, Chu Jinling was still by Su Yingxue's side. They were engaged in a lively conversation, their expressions filled with delight and relish. The empress noticed the emperor's furrowed brows and quickly added, "This Su family's daughter truly lacks manners. The banquet is about to begin, and yet she's still clinging to the prince, insatiable." Mother, not all of the Su family's daughters lack shame like Su Yingxue. Chu Qingye's face turned pale with anger. As he looked at Su Yuro, who was seated behind Su Yingxue, he noticed her poised and gentle demeanor. She looked at him affectionately, bringing him a sense of ease. However, when his gaze shifted to Su Yingxue, he couldn't help but want to step forward and give her a proper scolding. He wanted to ask her just how he, the highly regarded seventh prince, fell short compared to his ninth brother. Chapter 143. This king will help you pull the tooth first. After finishing his conversation with Su Yingxue, Chu Jinling hastily returned to his seat and began organizing the materials she had provided. He had a cheerful smile on his face. With all this material, he could easily write another 2 volumes. He was so engrossed in his sorting that he didn't even notice someone shouting about the arrival of the ninth prince. When he finally snapped out of it, the others had already paid their respects to Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan's behavior over the years had been consistent. He would nod to Chu Mingyuan and then, under his disapproving gaze, calmly take his seat. Apart from Chu Mingyuan, Chu Yihan commanded the utmost respect. This fact even left the empress no choice but to acknowledge it. Considering the hierarchy of their seats, the empress' position was lower than that of Chu Yihan. Just as Chu Jinling was about to jubilantly approach Chu Yihan to showcase his saved manuscript and outline, he suddenly felt Su Yingxue's gaze upon him. She lifted her cup in a toast from a distance. Did she have something important to discuss with him? Was she regretting their collaboration? Chu Jinling promptly concealed the manuscript securely within his robe and walked over to Su Yingxue. He crouched down and inquired, "Auntie, is there something you need?" With his imperial uncle present, shouldn't Su Yingxue's attention be on him? Su Yingxue gave him an exasperated look. "If you call me auntie again, I won't cooperate." Chu Jinling swiftly corrected himself. "Aunt Su, what's the matter?" Su Yingxue face-bombed and decided to ask the question first before giving Chu Jinling a beating. She raised her cup, obscuring their view from others, and asked, "Who was responsible for organizing today's banquet at the Upper Forest Court?" Chu Jinling pondered for a moment. It should have been arranged by the Ministry of Rites. They handle the ceremonial events and feasts within the palace. The Ministry of Rites? Su Yingxue furrowed her brows. She was unfamiliar with the officials of the Ministry of Rites, and she had no connections with their families. But then, why did her tea carry the fragrance of ylang ylang? Ylang ylang flowers were precious spices and could be used to produce fragrant oils. They had excellent medicinal properties, promoting relaxation and an overall sense of well-being. The entire Upper Forest Court was filled with its aroma today. It would be hard to detect unless one paid close attention. "Aunt Su, is there something specific you'd like to know?" Chu Jinling, like a curious student, behaved obediently by her side. To onlookers, his demeanor only intensified their mockery. Chu Xiuwen had never held a high opinion of Chu Jinling, and he retorted icily, "Ninth brother has truly disgraced us. As a dignified prince, he's indulging himself in the company of women, seemingly indifferent to his reputation. If this were to become known to other nations, they might ridicule our great Qing dynasty's princes to no end." "You find it amusing?" Chu Yihan's voice suddenly cut through the air. The weight of an iceberg seemed to press down upon Chu Xiuwen. Chu Xiuwen let out a disdainful snort. A significant portion of his resentment toward Chu Jinling stemmed from Chu Yihan. Given that both were 9 in their rankings, Chu Jinling had become Chu Yihan's shadow. Chu Yihan's relationship with his father was strained. He disregarded all the princes except for Chu Jinling. Despite Chu Jinling's lack of prowess in both literature and martial arts, a few words of praise from Chu Yihan each year garnered him a salary and rewards far surpassing those of his imperial brother. Chu Xiuwen had even heard that Chu Yihan was planning to petition for a title on Chu Jinling's behalf. With both Chu Mingyuan and the empress present today, Chu Ziyuan's audacity grew. Indeed, one find it amusing. "Imperial uncle, what course of action do you intend to take?" Chu Yihan raised an eyebrow, a trace of mischief dancing at the corner of his eyes. "Then I shall help you extract that tooth first, and well let the civil officials decide whether their laughter is warranted." Chapter 144. Su Yingxue. Before Chu Xiuwen could react, Mo Qi, who stood by Chu Yihan's side, appeared right in front of him. His movements were as swift as lightning, landing a powerful punch on Chu Ziyuan's face. Chu Xiuwen let out a startled cry as Mo Qi swiftly extracted one of his teeth, then promptly returned to Chu Yihan's side. Mo Qi placed the extracted tooth on Chu Yihan's table and spoke with utmost seriousness. "Master, this is a tooth from the third prince." Only when Chu Ziyuan's mouth filled with blood did he realize that Chu Yihan's men had knocked out his tooth. He clutched his injured face and grumbled indignantly, "Ninth imperial uncle, you. What about me? Have you gained a few extra teeth?" Chu Yihan raised an eyebrow, his imposing aura making it difficult for anyone to catch their breath. Chu Xiuwen turned his gaze toward his father. Chu Mingyuan's expression remained calm, as if he was accustomed to Chu Yihan's audacious behavior. Chu Mingyuan looked at Chu Xiuwen with a solemn expression. "Xiuwen, linger as your younger brother. As the eldest, you should be tolerant and magnanimous." With a missing tooth, Chu Xiuwen had no choice but to swallow his anger and take a sip of wine. The fiery liquor burned his mouth's wound, causing him both pain and an inability to cry out. He could only endure it before everyone, the frustration growing. Chu Qingye empathized with his third brother's plight, yet he understood the roles of subject and son. If his father chose not to pursue this matter, he, as a loyal subject, couldn't interfere. Otherwise, he might suffer the same fate as Chu Xiuwen, losing a tooth. Moreover, his attention hadn't fully shifted from Su Yingxue yet. She seemed to be engaged in an unending conversation with Chu Jinling. Chu Jinling shared gossip with Su Yingxue. The Madam of the Minister of Rights is here today. She's an exceptionally astute and capable woman. She and the Madam of the Minister of Personnel have been close friends since childhood. Oh! Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, her eyes revealing a hint of intrigue. She was aware that Madame Wu was standing nearby. So that was the situation. Su Yingxue's lips curved into a sly smile as she lifted her cup, her gaze directed over Chu Jinling's shoulder. From her vantage point behind her, it appeared as if she had emptied her cup of tea and remained oblivious to any anomalies. A trace of venom flashed in Madame Wu's eyes. Su Yingxue. Just wait for what was coming today. Between Madame Wu and Su Yingxue, Su Yuro heard Madame Wu's words and couldn't help but show a hint of delight. She would finally be able to see Su Yingxue make a fool of herself, so she did not have to be anxious. After finishing his chat with Su Yingxue, Chu Jinling passed by Chu Mingyuan and went to greet him and his mother. His mother, noble consort Xiao, hailed from a prestigious family, boasting elders from 3 dynasties and esteemed officials and generals. Even within the harem, she held a respected position. Unable to tolerate Chu Ziyuan's disparaging remarks about her son, she beckoned Chu Jinling over and questioned him loudly in front of everyone. Linger, what did you and Miss Su talk about for so long? You're only coming to your mother and father now. Leaning against noble consort Xiao, Chu Jinling smiled with a radiant and dashing expression. I admire Miss Su's medical expertise. We chatted about medical book contents. While I might not fully grasp them, Miss Su's explanations were enlightening. If I chat more with Miss Su, one might even find a way to cure mother's headaches. Oh, my dear Linger is such a filial child. Nothing like what others are saying, claiming that my Linger has tarnished the royal family's reputation. Noble consort Xiao embraced Chu Jinling and laughed heartily. From the angle that the Empress could see, she arrogantly raised her chin at the Empress, as if she was demonstrating her power. Chapter 145. You still dare to drink water? You have a son and so do I. They were both princes, not the crown prince. Who could be more noble? Chu Jinling knew that his mother was always strong-willed but never forced him. So in front of others he never allowed his mother to lose face. Lai even took the opportunity to praise Su Yingxue in front of Chu Mingyuan, saying, Father, Miss Su's medical skills are truly remarkable. Just look at Miss Lin's face. Many doctors couldn't help her, but Miss Su cured her. She's become so beautiful now. Chu Mingyuan, upon hearing this, looked at Lin Cixi. He remembered how unattractive Lin Aoshan's daughter's face used to be. He sometimes even considered arranging a marriage for Lin Cixi, but the compatibility was lacking. But now, this young girl's face had improved significantly, and she seemed more lively. This is all thanks to Su Yingxue. Reward her. Chu Mingyuan waved his hand, and Lan Ling immediately brought a glass of wine to Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue drank it publicly as a gesture of respect. From a corner visible to Chu Jinling, Su Yingxue blinked at him, as if saying, A pleasant collaboration. A pleasant collaboration. Chu Jinling whispered back, then bounced back to his seat. However, before he could even settle in, Emochi approached him. Ninth Prince, Your Highness is summoning you. Can I sip water before I go? Chu Jinling said helplessly. He had been hopping around like a cricket for half a day and was exhausted. Emochi didn't answer him. Instead, he took a step away and motioned for him to look at Chu Yihan's face. Such a good-looking face was now cold and dark. How dark was it? Chu Yihan seemed like saying, You still dare to drink water? Chu Jinling's legs wobbled, and he hurriedly rolled over to Chu Yihan's side. Su Yingxue observed, unaware of what Chu Jinling had said to Chu Yihan. While Chu Yihan's demeanor had been frosty and distant moments ago, once Chu Jinling left, it was as if the winter chill had melted away, replaced by warmth. Especially when Chu Yihan glanced her way, his eyes tender. Su Yingxue quickly lowered her head, feigning ignorance, not allowing anyone to notice the special connection when Chu Yihan looked at her. As she lowered her head, Chu Qingye perceived it as shyness. Chu Qingye still remembered the first time Su Yingxue confessed to him. She had just received a vase, an odd thing from somewhere, and she brought it to him, her voice crisp and tender. "Seventh Prince, you're so handsome. This is the prettiest one for you." Back then, it wasn't the vase that caught his attention, so he had no idea where that vase had ended up. What had captured his gaze was Su Yingxue's eyes, as pure as glass, and the beauty that had begun to bloom. Unfortunately, it had been a long time since she had smiled at him that way. Chu Qingye persisted, keeping his gaze on Su Yingxue. Finally, when Su Yingxue's eyes fell on him, he didn't see the adoration and shyness of a young girl. Instead, he saw indifference. Su Yingxue's gaze didn't linger, moving away as if she were looking through empty air. Chu Qingye clenched his fist, slamming it onto the table in frustration. Chu Xiuwen, who had been observing women, was suddenly brought back to reality. A sly smile curved his lips. "Seventh brother, don't be so impatient. It's just a woman. There are countless ways to win her over. Even if you want to bring her into the family and have some fun, there's no need to rush this moment." Though Chu Qingye wasn't as casual about matters of the heart as his third brother, Chu Ziyuan's experience with women over the years made him highly attuned to their psychology. Following his advice wouldn't lead to any mistakes. Chapter 146. Incense and men are waiting for you. Chu Qingye nodded and lifted his wine glass. "Thank you for the reminder, third brother." The two brothers had a good drink. After the banquet, some stayed in the upper forest court to admire the scenery, while others returned to their quarters to rest. Some remained on the premises to warm up, preparing for the upcoming hunting competition. The spring banquet and the hunting ground competition were always highly anticipated events, like a captivating drama unfolding. Lin Cixi looked forward to this time the most. She pulled Su Yingxue along, eager to practice. "Dr. Su, come on, let's practice archery. You also come from a family of warriors, so your equestrian and archery skills must be impressive." Su Yingxue smiled, acknowledging the truth in Lin Cixi's words. She had a fondness for archery from a young age. Though she loved nothing else, she cherished riding and archery. Her grandfather was delighted to instruct her every day. However, she sensed that two pairs of eyes were fixated on her from behind. She touched her forehead, excusing herself. "The official competition starts tomorrow. This afternoon is just a warm-up. I had some wine at noon, and need to rest a bit. 111 come to find you later." "All right then. Don't sleep for too long. Let's practice more and strive to impress those men with our equestrian and archery skills tomorrow." Lin Cixi's spirits were high, radiating a bold and resolute aura. Su Yingxue let her practice alone, and headed toward her resting quarters. In order to satisfy the person behind her, she had a smile on her face, and deliberately walked 2 steps before entering her room. Madame Wu watched Su Yingxue enter the room with a vicious look in her eyes. "Su Yingxue, you've harmed my 3 children. I'll make sure you die a miserable death today." She waited for half an hour. She thought that the spices and men she had arranged in Su Yingxue's room should have finished their effects. She planned to go and take a look, and then make a commotion to let others discover her. However, just as she leaned against Su Yingxue's door, and was about to listen for any movements, the door suddenly opened. Su Yingxue's fox-like face appeared before her eyes and enlarged. "Madame Wu, are you looking for me?" Madame Wu's jaw dropped in surprise. Before she could react, Su Yingxue pulled her inside. Su Yingxue flipped Madame Wu into her room. Both the incense and the man in her room were waiting for her. As a gesture of goodwill, Su Yingxue even collected ylang ylang from Medicine King Valley and placed it in her room. When the aroma of the ylang ylang and the incense combined, the effect was meant to achieve what Madame Wu desired. However, she intended to let Madame Wu savor this effect at her own pace. "All you too. Look closely and see who 1am. No fooling around. 1am. Help. Master, please save me. Come down." Madame Wu's anguish cries quickly attracted a crowd. This kind of matter fell under the jurisdiction of Lin Qin, the Minister of Rights. When he noticed the unusual situation in Su Yingxue's room, he was taken aback. However, The commotion was so significant that even Lin Outyin became aware of it. With the arrival of a straightforward military man like him, even if he intended to help Wu Hongtao conceal the situation, it was no longer possible. Lin Outyin came to assess the situation and brought Madame Wu and the other two men to Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan had just finished his afternoon nap and was planning to visit the hunting ground. Lin Outyin grabbed them and brought them in front of him. Chu Mingyuan frowned immediately. What's going on? An event as grand as the spring banquet should not be marred by such a scandalous scene. Lin Outyin reported honestly. Emperor, these three individuals were found engaging in improper behavior in one of the rooms. The commotion was quite significant. This woman is the wife of Minister Wu from the Ministry of Personnel. I've brought them here to seek your judgment. Chapter 147, I want to put on a sack and beat them up. Chu Mingyuan's expression darkened. Go fetch Wu Hongtao. Have him take his wife away. As for these two, execute them. Lin Outyin nodded and replied, I will carry out your command. Chu Mingyuan's pleasant mood for the afternoon was shattered. The spring banquet is such a grand event, and yet these individuals engaged in such vile behavior. Lin Qin is also at fault for not noticing. Lin Qin trembled and knelt. Please spare me, Emperor. I acknowledge my wrongdoing. Forget it. Go back and reflect on your actions. Leave the matter of the Ministry of Rights to Year. With a flick of his sleeve, Chu Mingyuan walked away into the forest. Su Yingxue blended into the crowd, a cool smile curling her lips. She thought to herself that Chu Mingyuan truly valued Chu Qingye. Chu Qingye had indeed reaped unexpected benefits from her actions, but she wouldn't allow him to have it so easily. At the archery practice field, she found the spirited Lin Cixi. Her arrows soared like meteors, swift, precise, and relentless. Each arrow hit the bullseye, leaving the nearby practicing princes and young masters in awe. When Lin Cixi saw Su Yingxue approaching, she greeted her enthusiastically with her bow. Dr. Su, are you feeling better? Do you want to practice archery together? Oh, one heard from father that something happened in your room. Are you all right? Su Yingxue shook her head. It's not me who's in trouble, and one wasn't even in the room. That's good. Lin Cixi was candid, not overthinking the situation. Instead, she kept inviting Su Yingxue to practice archery, and even proposed teaming up for the competition, aiming to win the emperor's reward. Su Yingxue understood that the most significant part of the spring banquet was the hunting competition, where teams competed to hunt the most game. Those who achieved the most would be rewarded, and those who hunted formidable beasts like lions, black bears, or tigers would receive additional prizes. In the past, no one had been willing to partner with Lin Cixi, so she had never won. This time, she wanted to team up with Su Yingxue, secure the reward, and simultaneously show those who had been unwilling to join forces with her before just how capable she was. Su Yingxue agreed immediately. However, she frowned and pretended to be thinking. The emperor's rewards are enticing, but there's a grudge one need to address. It's not something that can be substituted by rewards. Do you want to vent your anger, Dr. Su? I can help you give him a beating. Lin Cixi eagerly flexed her fists, but recalling her father's advice, she cocked her head and suggested, My father said I shouldn't cause a scene here. But if you want to take out your frustration, we could secretly tie a sack around that person and give him a good thrashing. He's a prince. Beating him up would indeed be letting him off too easily. Su Yingxue sighed. If other noble ladies heard about her intention to beat up a prince, they would have distanced themselves from her in an instant. However, Lin Cixi's eyes brightened. Dr. Su, which prince do you want to beat up? Is it the third prince? A faint smile appeared on Su Yingxue's lips. I want to deal with his younger brother, the seventh prince. I want to beat the third prince. Dr. Su, how about this? At the banquet tonight, when they're tipsy, we could discreetly tie them up and give them a sound beating. As Lin Cixi spoke, she rubbed her palms together. She wished she could use a gunny sack to tie Chu Xiuwen up right now. This method is not practical. If we beat them up and investigate them, it will be your father General Lin's dereliction of duty. Lin Cixi suddenly understood. You're right. We mustn't implicate my father. But, Seeing the frustrated expression on her face, Su Yingxue reassured her. Well, come up with another plan. Chapter 148. Challenging the prince. What kind of solution? Dr. Su, you might not know, but Chu Xiuwen is a despicable person. He uses his status as a prince to bully women everywhere. One couldn't stand it and scolded him a few times before, and he publicly humiliated me in return. He even mocked me for being ugly and unworthy of speaking to him. He looks down on me because of my lower status, but I can't bear to see him living so carefree despite his playboy behavior. Lin Cece clenched her teeth, her heart burdened by this pent-up anger for a long time. Su Yingxue coldly chuckled. Naturally, he doesn't deserve such carefree living. So, we're not only going to slap him, but we'll also make him experience the humiliation he's subjected others to. Lin Cece's eyes lit up, showing great interest in listening to Su Yingxue's plan. Once they were ready, they rode into the forest. Today, they could only linger around the forest's edge. The official hunting within the forest would commence tomorrow. When Lin Cece and Su Yingxue saw Chu Xiuwen wandering around the entrance of the forest, they immediately rode their horses over. Lin Cece's horse blocked Chu Ziyuan's path, and she pointed her bow at him, shouting, "Hey, are you brave enough to be our opponent in the hunt tomorrow?" Chu Xiuwen raised an eyebrow, a hint of disdain in his tone. Lin Cece, have your face and courage both improved? You haven't even bothered to look in the mirror before going out. You're nothing more than a slightly better-looking toad. You're the toad. Lin Cece shot an arrow directly at him. Her precise archery caused the arrow to strike even as Chu Xiuwen attempted to dodge, grazing a strand of his hair. Chu Ziyuan's humiliation quickly turned into anger. Lin Cece, you're asking for death. He had always treated women as mere playthings, and their resistance was something he could not tolerate. He would crush them to assert his dominance. Lin Cece had been a constant target of his humiliation, and now, she dared to openly challenge him. Third Prince, Miss Lin is merely here for a challenge. If you dare not accept, then say so. It's quite uncouth to resort to curses like this. Su Yingxue sighed softly. Her words were like a spark igniting the fury within Chu Xiuwen. He pointed an arrow at Su Yingxue. What did you say? This prince is uncouth? Su Yingxue, perhaps I should ask your father, the Marquis of Martial South, about your upbringing. Ah, Third Prince, why do you have to question my father when we are fighting as equals? Or do you want me to go discuss your upbringing with the Emperor? While anyone else might tremble in fear, Su Yingxue's mention of Chu Mingyuan scared Chu Xiuwen, not her. Chu Xiuwen wished he could tear her mouth apart. Chu Qingye's face darkened as he intervened. Su Yingxue, Lin Cece, if you want to enter the hunting grounds, then hunt fairly. There's no need for challenges. But we specifically want to challenge you. Seventh Prince, are you too afraid to accept the challenge? Lin Cece coldly snorted. She was just like Chu Xiuwen, born from the same mother. There was nothing commendable about him. You. Chu Qingye's handsome face tensed. He didn't want to stand against Su Yingxue. He still remembered how well Su Yingxue had treated him in the past, and wanted to treat her more leniently. Your Highness, sister is upset. You gave me the riding attire first, and you only gave it to her today. Please, for Ruer's sake, don't be angry with sister. Su Yuro suddenly appeared, bowing slightly. She moved gracefully, her voice melodious. Even Chu Xiuwen couldn't help but cast a few more glances her way and praised. This is the model of a Marquis Manor's daughter. Su Yingxue, you should learn from your sister, and avoid mingling with toads like Lin Cece, who keep their gaze confined to a well. Chapter 149. Don't cry too pitifully if you lose. I don't need you, Third Prince, to lecture me on what I should do. If you're too afraid to accept the challenge, then admit defeat now. We won't look down on you for it. Su Yingxue said confidently, as she touched the red jade soft whip that Lin Cece had given her, her red lips curling with pride. Her stunning face exuded an air of boldness and recklessness, captivating all the men present, and igniting a desire to conquer her, to possess her beauty. Su Yingxue, you're asking for trouble. Tomorrow, one will make the two of you women kneel before me and beg. Chu Ziyuan's face turned red with anger, his teeth clenched. Despite playing with women for so many years, There wasn't a single one he couldn't tame. Third brother. Chu Qingye attempted to advise him against impulsiveness. However, Chu Xiuwen grabbed the reins and pulled him closer, questioning, "Don't you want the Su sisters? If you let that wretch Su Yingxue become your main consort, how will Su Yuro ever have a good life? If you want to bring both sisters into the residence, you need to first subdue Su Yingxue. Let her understand that regardless of her lofty status, she can only be a concubine. In the future, the two of them can serve you together. You can't be soft-hearted towards women." Chu Qingye's fleeting sentiment of tenderness toward women was extinguished by Chu Ziyuan's words. Chu Qingye held his head high and took confident strides forward. "If you two want to challenge us, then third brother and I will accept. Just don't cry too pitifully when the time comes." "FMF. Cry. We'll see who ends up crying." Lin Cece slung her longbow over her shoulder, exuding a confident and heroic aura. Su Yingxue spoke calmly. "Very well. We'll see who the winner is tomorrow." The news of Su Yingxue and Lin Cece challenging the two princes spread throughout the spring banquet, achieving the intended effect Su Yingxue had sought. Satisfied with the outcome, Su Yingxue and Lin Cece went to prepare. Their training went unseen by anyone. So much so that when Chu Yihan heard the news and came to find Su Yingxue, he couldn't locate her. Later that night, Su Yuro pondered the day's events repeatedly, although she had intentionally provoked Chu Qingye into accepting the challenge. However, Su Yingxue and Lin Cece's smiles before they left made her feel uneasy. Su Yingxue had been behaving oddly lately, and her mother's advice still lingered in her mind, prompting her to be cautious. She sent Yuan Ruo to inquire about it. When Yuan Ruo returned, she told her, "Miss, one couldn't find out what eldest young Miss and Lin Cece are up to. Even the third prince and seventh prince couldn't be found. They're being extremely secretive." "Why the secrecy? What is Su Yingxue planning?" Su Yuro had already retired for the night, but upon hearing Yuan Ruo's report, she contemplated it and felt something was amiss. She instructed Yuan Ruo to discreetly visit her mother and return with the information. Upon her return, Yuan Ruo brought Lu Shilan's words. Her mother let her stop Su Yingxue and Chu Qingye from competing. Initially, Su Yuro did not understand why. It was impossible for Su Yingxue to win against the two princes, right? Even if she did win, it would only result in some rewards. However, Lu Shilan's letter stated that Su Yingxue was cunning and cautioned against the competition. Furthermore, Lu Shulan pointed out a way for Su Yuro to inform the Empress, urging the Empress to intervene and stop the challenge. Su Yuro quickly got up and headed to the Empress chambers. The Empress was about to rest. She felt that Su Yuro's actions the last time were too stupid and did not want to see her at all. However, Lu Fu, who was by her side, informed her, "Your Majesty, Miss Su is kneeling outside. She claims there is an extremely urgent matter concerning the two princes." Chapter 150. The plan was destroyed. She's just a nameless concubine's daughter. What urgent matter could she have? She's just clinging to Year, using those lowly tricks. The Empress' eyes showed a hint of disdain as she allowed Lu Fu to help her retire for the night. Su Yuro had knelt outside the Empress' chamber the entire night. When the Empress rose in the morning and learned that Su Yuro was still kneeling, she summoned her inside. When Su Yuro emerged, it was clear her knees were sore, making walking difficult. Yuan Ruo looked at her with sympathy. "Miss, why did you need to be so subservient before the Empress?" The ambition in Su Yuro's eyes was evident. "I pleaded with her not only to make Su Yingxue suffer, but also to experience it." "Experience what?" Yuan Ruo didn't understand. Su Yuro didn't answer, but she knew very well that she was doing this to experience the satisfaction of becoming an empress. She would carry the status of a concubine's daughter for the rest of her life. In the future, when she married Chu Qingye would ascend to the throne, and she would be the empress. At that time, there would be people kneeling before her until their legs gave out. Early in the morning, Lin Cece knocked on Su Yingxue's door. Seeing her already in her riding attire, she grabbed her enthusiastically. "Let's go, Dr. Su. Today, we'll crush them without mercy. Let's teach those princes a lesson." Su Yingxue smiled and accompanied her. But as they had just taken a few steps, Lin Outyin approached with a grim expression. Cece, the emperor summons you. He wants you and Miss Su to make a trip to the imperial court. Why do we need to go to the imperial court? The competition is about to begin, and Dr. Su and I are waiting to enter. Lin Cece stomped her foot in frustration. The emperor has summoned you. You must not refuse. Lin Outyin insisted and took Su Yingxue along as well. On the imperial fusion platform, Chu Mingyuan sat with his consorts, enjoying the scenery and observing the fluttering flags as teams prepared for departure. When Su Yingxue arrived, Chu Qingyan and his brother were present, still wearing their riding attire, their faces solemn. A sense of unease washed over Su Yingxue. Could it be that Chu Mingyuan was going to interfere with today's competition? This subject's daughter pays respects to the emperor. Su Yingxue and Lin Cece knelt in unison. Once Chu Mingyuan signaled for them to rise, he spoke directly. I've heard that you wish to challenge the princes. One forbid it. Today, both of you need not enter the hunting grounds. Stay here on the imperial fusion platform and watch. Emperor. Lin Cece protested with a displeased tone. Su Yingxue's eyes darkened. Just as she suspected, her plan had been thwarted. But who did it? Su Yingxue's gaze shifted to Su Yuro, who was beside the empress. It was odd that she occupied that particular position today. Su Yuro was obediently attentive to the empress' side, avoiding Su Yingxue's gaze altogether. In contrast, the empress sneered. Some people think their meager skills make them worthy of ascending to the clouds, even daring to challenge a prince. What a joke. Empress, one prevented them from hunting to ensure their safety. After all, women have never formed hunting teams in the past. The forests are dangerous and filled with fierce beasts. I am merely concerned for their well-being, Chu Mingyuan retorted, even phrasing his words more favorably to comfort Su Yingxue and Lin Cece. Lin Cece was still dissatisfied. She pointed at Chu Xiuwen and Chu Qingya. Emperor, if we can't enter the hunting grounds, why can they? Of course they can. They are princes and valiant men. Why not? Lin Cece, don't overstep your boundaries. The empress admonished sternly. Chapter 151. Accidentally acting coy. Lin Cece remained deeply dissatisfied, but she understood that she couldn't openly oppose the empress. She gritted her teeth and begrudgingly returned to Lin Aoshan's side. Lin Outyin patted her back. All right, Cece. Later I'll personally bring back a fierce tiger for you. Humph. Lin Cece seethed inwardly. She was fully capable of taming a tiger on her own. Chu Xiuwen playfully fanned himself as he stood up, laughing. Seventh brother. Father didn't explicitly forbid us from going to the hunting grounds. We're men, not to be trapped like women. Let's go change. Chu Qingya nodded in agreement. Chu Xiuwen intentionally walked past Lin Cece and Su Yingxue with Chu Qingya, flaunting their presence. Lin Cece was on the brink of exploding with frustration. Her anger was getting the best of her, and she even considered snatching the red jade soft whip from Su Yingxue's hand. Stop fooling around. Su Yingxue lightly tapped her small hand. Lin Cece was so frustrated she could almost cry. However, Su Yingxue calculated that the brothers needed some time to change and enter the arena. She still had time to do something. Quietly, she slipped into Chu Yihan's courtyard. The upper forest court was the nearest temporary residence to the imperial palace. Chu Yihan held a unique and esteemed position, and his courtyard here was just as large as the emperor. Moreover, Su Yingxue remembered there was a pathway here that led directly to the imperial palace, and it was quite convenient. So, she sought Chu Yihan's assistance, hoping he could invite consort Xiang over. Chu Yihan's stern face showed no emotion. Why should I help you? Su Yingxue pursed her lips. Your Highness, please help me invite consort Xiang over. In return, I'll help you discipline your two unruly nephews. The third prince's insolence towards you yesterday was truly unacceptable. If he isn't taught a lesson, how will he learn to respect his imperial uncle? Haha, Mo Qi chuckled, thinking Su Yingxue was quite skilled in improvisation. Chu Yihan set down his teacup and leaned his head on his hand, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. One want to teach those two good-for-nothing nephews a lesson. One don't need anyone else. I can just do it directly. Su Yingxue was at a loss for words. You're quite confident, aren't you? She thought. Your Highness, please help me. I want to teach them a lesson. Su Yingxue unconsciously acted a bit coquettish towards Chu Yihan. The corners of Chu Yihan's lips curled up. Mochi thought to himself. The master is certainly reveling in this. He quietly withdrew. Chu Yihan remained silent, and time was running out for Su Yingxue. In a rush, she approached Chu Yihan, grasped his hand and pleaded. Your Highness, please send someone quickly. If it's delayed, Consort Xiang won't make it in time. There's still a journey ahead of her. Chu Yihan's hand was held by Su Yingxue, her soft fingers gently caressing his hand like a massage. A sense of contentment swept over Chu Yihan. Very well, I'll help you. But how do you plan to express your gratitude? Your Highness surely doesn't require my gratitude. Su Yingxue was still her mischievous self. Chu Yihan had taken away her jade pendant and handkerchief, and she hadn't retrieved them yet. Gratitude again. She had nothing left to offer Chu Yihan as a token of thanks. If you don't express gratitude, I want help. Chu Yihan toyed with her jade pendant, a hint of playfulness in his cold expression. Su Yingxue tilted her head, contemplating whether to make a threat to Chu Yihan. Are you going or not? If you don't, I'll kiss you, she thought. But then she remembered that the person in front of her was the 9th prince. Even Chu Qingye and Chu Xiuwen had to bow their heads obediently before him. Su Yingxue decided it was wiser to keep herself alive for a few more years. So, she earnestly inquired of Chu Yihan. Your Highness, what kind of expression of gratitude would you like? Chu Yihan looked at her approaching face, her rosy lips tempting, and replied with a faint smile. Kiss me. Chapter 152. A fair competition. Su Yingxue's eyes widened in surprise, her expression frozen amid astonishment. She heard Chu Yihan continue, 9 more times. No way. Su Yingxue immediately and decisively rejected the proposition. The idea of 10 kisses was already pushing the boundaries. Why did he have to extend it to 9 more times? Chu Yihan simply acknowledged her response, his demeanor turning cold. The room became as frigid as an ice mountain. Su Yingxue lightly touched the cold jade on her chest, which was still emanating warmth within her body. With determination, she approached Chu Yihan, facing his profile, and lowered her head for another kiss. A click. The sound of their lips brushing against each other's skin echoed with a hint of ambiguity. Gentle, delicate. However, those who listened closely could discern the sound. Chu Yihan stole a glance at Su Yingxue. She appeared quite self-assured, as if to say, I've kissed you, so now you can go find Consort Xiang, right? Chu Yihan maintained an upright posture, and turned his face to directly face Su Yingxue. I've already kissed you, Su Yingxue said, her voice tinged with suspicion. There are still 9 to go. Chu Yihan reminded her. Counting kisses, there was no way to deceive him. We can continue kissing later. Your Highness, please invite Consort Xiang first. Otherwise, we might run out of time. Su Yingxue was growing frustrated. Negotiating with Chu Yihan was proving to be an incredibly challenging task. I won't go until you finish. Chu Yihan was resolute. Su Yingxue covered the cold jade on her chest and thought, it's just kissing after all. 9 more times. Who was afraid of whom? The door slammed shut with a resounding clang. Su Yingxue advanced toward Chu Yihan with determination. By the time she emerged again, half an hour had gone. She lowered her head, hand covering her mouth, then turned to glare at Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan's lips were now cut, a trace of blood lingering at the corner of his mouth. As he wiped away the blood with his finger, a faint streak of red appeared on his face. This added a touch of allure to his already peerlessly handsome countenance, making him appear especially enticing. Su Yingxue deeply regretted seeking out Chu Yihan. Not only had she been taken advantage of, but she had also squandered time. If he went to invite Consort Xiang now, he didn't know if he could make it in time. Anxious, she returned to the Imperial Fusion platform, only to find that Chu Qingye and his brother had yet to set off. Lin Cixi was already mounted on her horse, waiting for her. Lin Cixi eagerly waved at her. Dr. Su, hurry. The emperor allowed us to enter the hunting ground. He even gave us special permission to compete with the third prince and the seventh prince. Lin Sisi was brimming with excitement, her eyes practically radiating joy. Su Yingxue was a bit perplexed, but then she noticed Consort Xiang standing beside Chu Mingyuan. Consort Xiang was breathtakingly beautiful, her complexion as smooth as ice, and she exuded an otherworldly allure. Her sapphire-like eyes met Su Yingxue's, accompanied by a kindly smile. As it turned out, Chu Yihan had already dispatched someone to fetch her. Consort Xiang didn't address Su Yingxue directly. Instead, she gracefully took a seat beside Chu Mingyuan and spoke tenderly. "Thanks, Emperor, for granting me the opportunity to experience the magnificence of the hunting grounds and witness the competition between the young ladies and the princes." Chu Mingyuan's affection for her was evident. Initially, when the empress approached him, expressing concern over the matter, he prevented both Lin Sisi and Su Yingxue from participating in the event to preserve the royal family's dignity. He had also considered guarding against any mischief from Su Yingxue. However, Consort Xiang's unexpected arrival changed the situation. She expressed her love for hunting and lamented that her gender and health prevented her from partaking. She wished to see the young ladies who had the chance to compete. Since she had just arrived from the palace, she couldn't have coordinated with Su Yingxue beforehand. Consequently, Chu Mingyuan granted her request without much hesitation. Chapter 153. He's going to protect Su Yingxue. He just couldn't bring himself to reject her. Seeing a hint of regret and sorrow in her eyes would make his heart ache. For years, the empress had harbored jealousy toward Consort Xiang. Her attempts to harm her had failed, and she had even been punished and confined in the past. Now Consort Xiang had emerged to challenge her once again. A glint of ruthlessness flashed in the empress' eyes. If Consort Xiang's health is not good, she should stay in the palace. The upper forest court is dusty, and if you fall ill, don't blame me for not treating you well. Consort Xiang was immune to such words from the empress. She simply leaned against Chu Mingyuan's embrace. Chu Mingyuan rarely witnessed a smile on Consort Xiang's face. When she ceased smiling, he turned to the empress and lashed out. "Empress, if you continue to scold Consort Xiang, then go back to the palace." The empress, scolded in front of everyone, found herself speechless and embarrassed. Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi exchanged amused glances on the sidelines. Especially when they saw Chu Xiuwen and Chu Qingye's expression sour after the empress scolding, their amusement grew even stronger. To appease Consort Xiang, Chu Mingyuan offered his bow as a reward, promising that the winning team would receive it. Consort Xiang also removed a pearl hairpin from her head. "I'll contribute this pearl hairpin as a reward, along with the emperor's bow." "Very well." Chu Mingyuan happily embraced her. "A pearl hairpin is nothing." 111 offered 3 golden hairpins as a reward. The empress refused to be outdone, immediately tossing 3 golden hairpins into the reward plate. "If the empress is so generous, then I, a concubine, must also step up. I'll offer 10 golden hairpins as a reward." Noble consort Xiao strolled over gracefully, exuding an air of elegance and luxury. Coupled with her generosity, she quickly overshadowed the empress' sharpness. She was particularly confident in Lin Sisi and Su Yingxue, smiling at them and saying, "You 2 young ladies must compete well. If you win, I'll have additional rewards." "Thank you, noble consort." Su Yingxue and Lin Sisi expressed their gratitude. Noble consort Xiao covered her mouth and giggled. With her wealth and Consort Xiang's favor from the emperor, the 2 of them flanked the empress, leaving her looking like a clown. Chu Xiuwen, seeing the empress being mistreated, couldn't help but grit his teeth. "Seventh brother, we must make those 2 women kneel and cry." Chu Qingye initially had no plans to target Su Yingxue, but seeing her confident expression, he grew irritated. "Su Yingxue, you're the one who's disregarding the face I'm giving you. Don't blame me later," he thought. The 4 of them rode into the forest like eagles just learning to fly. Consort Xiang remained in Chu Mingyuan's arms, her eyes filled with envy as she watched Su Yingxue's figure disappear into the distance. She believed that Su Yingxue would surely win. Sheng Ping observed from a distance near the entrance. She noticed Chu Yihan entering the forest on horseback. In the past, he had never bothered to participate in such hunts. They were beneath him, and he saw no need to vie with his juniors. But this time he joined. "Princess, how many fierce beasts do you think your highness can hunt?" Lianer tried to lighten Sheng Ping's mood. Sheng Ping's lips curved into a faint smile. He's there to protect others. He probably doesn't care about hunting fierce beasts. Perhaps his main concern was whether Suingxue would get hurt. However, with his protection, it would be hard for any harm to come to her. "Princess, please don't feel this way. Your highness has saved you before." Lianer couldn't bear to see Sheng Ping so depressed. Chapter 154. Provoking. He saved me because he annihilated the Yu Kingdom, but he protects Dr. Su because he loves her. In the distance, figures were no longer visible, yet Sheng Ping still couldn't resist craning her neck to catch a glimpse. Even if she could just see the dust kicked up behind Chu Yihan. After Suingxue and Lin Sisi entered the forest, they showed off their skills. There were palace guards following behind them to pick up the prey they hunted. In half an hour, their baskets held a harvest of 20 or 30 creatures. Chu Xiuwen looked at his and Chu Qingye's prey. It was only half of theirs. There was a trace of anxiety in his eyes. "Seventh brother, what's gotten into you today? You're absent-minded. Are you going to lose to those two obnoxious girls?" Chu Qingye snapped back to attention. Chu Ziyuan's shout threw off his aim. Swoosh! Su Yingsha's arrow struck the target he had lined up moments before. She even promptly had someone retrieve the prey. Chu Qingye couldn't help but exclaim, "Suingxue, that's my catch." "Your Highness, is your eyesight lacking? The arrow on that prey belongs to me, Suingxue. If your Highness wants prey, aim more precisely." Suingxue sneered, turned her horse and galloped away. The gusty wind billowed her long hair, and her gallant figure was captivating, even from behind. Chu Qingye felt as though a cat's claw had raked across his heart. He cursed his damned infatuation with Suingxue. Swoosh! Another empty shot. Chu Ziyuan's aim was off, and the rabbit escaped. He was infuriated. Damn it! He was about to pursue the prey when he saw Chu Qingye still dazed. He couldn't help but roar, "Seventh brother, if you keep dawdling, get ready to kowtow to those two wretched girls." Chu Qingye's heart sank. Clenching his teeth, he followed Chu Xiuwen. For a full hour, they raced through the forest. During a break, Suingxue and Lin Sisi showcased prey twice the amount of theirs. Chu Ziyuan's gums were about to bleed. He couldn't believe that these two wretched girls were so good at hunting. Especially Suingxue. This wretched woman was participating in a hunt for the first time. But why was her horsemanship and archery so extraordinary? He was well acquainted with all the women in Jiangdu City, meticulously observing their every word and action. Yet this Suingxue, she was utterly unforeseen. Suingxue knew Chu Xiuwen was watching her. She didn't know how many times Shed made a disdainful gesture at him, inciting his anger to the point where he broke 3 fine bows. Lin Sisi was excited about hunting, and came to look for Suingxue, only to find that she was secretly competing with Chu Xiuwen. She could not help but ask what she saw. "Dr. Su, why are you specifically targeting the third prince today? Don't you hold a grudge against the seventh prince?" Suingxue smiled. "Sisi, birds of a feather flock together. I despise both of them, so it's only natural to target them without hesitation." Her reasoning was plain, and Lin Sisi instantly grasped it. "Dr. Su, how do you intend to deal with the third prince? Please let me know. This guy is truly detestable. One of my cousins was ensnared by him, her innocence violated, and then he discarded her. She still hasn't been able to marry." Lin Sisi's teeth were gritted as she spoke. She regretted not having the ability to seek vengeance for both herself and her cousin earlier. Now she wouldn't let him go. Suingxue nodded. "All right, let's lure him deep into the woods later." Lin Sisi wasted no time talking action. Their provocative words, and the fact that they were showing off their prey, made Chu Xiuwen lose his rationality. He abandoned the idea of comparing the number of prey, and rode his horse straight toward the area where the ferocious beasts were. Chapter 155. Encountering a tiger, the Empress was anxiously watching from the Imperial fusion platform. Xiuwen, how could you venture into the territory of ferocious beasts? Year, quickly follow your brother. Even though Chu Qingye had caught up, the Empress remained on edge. Noble consort Xiao, nibbling on delicate pastries nearby, sneered coldly. The third prince dares to hunt fierce beasts, so he must have the skills for it. Your Highness, it seems you know about his capabilities. Or else why be so concerned? He shouldn't have gone to the area with dangerous beasts. Noble consort Xiao, how dare you accuse my son? The Empress was infuriated. This is what the Empress said herself. I'm just curious if third prince has the ability. Noble consort Xiao, who was watching the show, did not mind the matter getting out of hand, angering the Empress even more. If you say so, how capable is your son? He can't even hold a bow and arrow. The Empress' anger was immediately directed at Chu Jinling, who had found a table at the back and was obediently writing a book. Noble consort Xiao gave Chu Jinling a fond look. My son is naturally talented. Just look, the other princes have gone off to play, while my linger is obediently staying here to accompany his mother and the emperor. Chu Jinling occasionally looked up, flashing noble consort Xiao a charming smile, making her heart swell with happiness. The Empress felt stifled. Her son was being unruly, and she couldn't win the argument. She was close to fainting from anger. In the thick forest, Chu Xiuwen wasn't adept at horseback riding and archery. As soon as he entered, it became inconvenient to ride, feeling restricted. But he was stubborn, and would not allow himself to lose to those two wretch women. He began scouring the area for signs of the beasts. He had a squad of guards trailing behind him. He commanded, search for this prince. Find a ferocious beast and make sure to kill it and bring it back. He refused to believe he couldn't outdo those two wretch women. Third prince, I've never heard of anyone needing guards to assist in a hunt. Su Yingshi's mocking voice echoed. When Chu Xiuwen glanced her way, Su Yingshi's arrow was already trained on him. Su Yingxue, what are you doing? Chu Xiuwen cried out in panic. Swoosh, the arrow was released. Chu Ziyuan's eyes widened as he watched it hurtle toward him. It grazed his cheek and pulled him off his horse with considerable force. Chu Xiuwen fell into the mud, his entire body tinged with the earthy fragrance. Rolling onto his feet, he erupted into curses. Su Yingxue, you're plotting against a prince. It's a capital offense. Su Yingxue shrugged, appearing entirely nonchalant. Just as Chu Xiuwen was about to draw his sword and advance on her, a sudden howl pierced the air. Roar! A gust of wind accompanied the sound, causing nearby vegetation to quiver. Chu Ziyuan's legs turned to jelly. He spun around and spotted a tiger twice his size directly in front of him. Your Highness, run! His guards trembled as they shouted. Chu Xiuwen also wanted to flee, but fear had left him rooted in place, his legs like lead. The tiger seemed to be fixated on him, approaching even though others were present. Your Highness, aren't we here to hunt ferocious beasts? Why are you so frightened at the sight of a tiger? Su Yingxue sat astride her horse, watching him with a playful smile. She seemed entirely unafraid of the tiger. If it were possible, Chu Xiuwen almost believed that Su Yingxue had deliberately released the tiger to scare him. Roar! The tiger let out a series of enraged roars. Chu Xiuwen stood there, trembling like a sieve. Su Yingxue, still atop her horse, offered him a well-meaning reminder. Third prince, if you don't run now, you'll end up as the tiger's lunch. Chapter 156. Killed two lions. Su Yingxue, just wait. Chu Xiuwen finally managed to move his legs, turning around and sprinting as fast as he could. However, his two legs were no match for the tiger's four. In addition, the arrowhead Su Yingxue shot at him was stained with muskiness. Spring was the time when animals were in heat. This tiger smelled the muskiness on his body and would chase him until it got its hands on him. Whether he lived or died would depend on his skills. Su Yingxi's lips curled into a smile. Memories of the women who had suffered at Chu Ziyuan's hands fueled her satisfaction in seeking revenge for them. As she was about to ride away, she heard a faint rustling from the surrounding foliage. Her horse seemed startled, lifting its front hooves. Swoosh! Su Yingxue gently patted her horse's head to calm it. She had spotted 2 pairs of eyes hidden in the woods. These eyes had been observing for a while, waiting for the tiger to chase Chu Xiuwen away before revealing themselves. Su Yingxue's heart skipped a beat. Emerging from the underbrush were 2 lions. These lions were different from the previous tiger, which had lunged at Chu Xiuwen like a ravenous beast. These lions were composed, waiting patiently for the right moment. She had dealt with Chu Xiuwen, which meant that there was no one by her side now. Su Yingxue tightened her grip on the bow and arrow in her hand. She did not expect that she would attract a lion. Not just 1, but 2. She squeezed the horse's stomach and was about to run away, but the 2 lions blocked her way. The 2 of them seemed to have discussed it beforehand. Today, they would leave her corpse behind to eat. Su Yingxue clenched her teeth. She couldn't run away now, so she could only fight with them. As the lions charged at her, she crouched on her horse's back and released an arrow. Unfortunately, her shot missed, and she tumbled off her horse. Her horse neighed and bolted, but the lions didn't give chase. They continued to fixate on her. Su Yingxue was now bruised and battered. She continuously drew her bow and arrows, retreating, but she was unable to injure the 2 lions at all. Damn it! Su Yingxue muttered under her breath. How had she managed to attract such ferocious beasts? Su Yingxue! A displeased male voice resounded, sending a shiver through the 2 lions. One of the lions abruptly lunged at Su Yingxue. She had no time to defend herself, and in an instant, a scream pierced the air, followed by the thud of a body hitting the grass. When Su Yingxue reopened her eyes, the lion that had attacked her lay dismembered. Its limbs twitched on the ground. The other lion roared menacingly at Chu Yihan. Roar! Chu Yihan, his figure poised, was about to deal with the remaining lion when Su Yingxue shouted, "Come on!" She fled, and the remaining lion pursued her. Chu Yihan leaped over several trees to catch up. He pulled her into his embrace, swiftly decapitating the lion. 2 lion heads rolled to the ground. Chu Yihan covered Su Yingxue's eyes and wiped the blood from her face. Curiously, he asked, "Why did you run?" She was shocked and her voice was trembling. "I was scared." Chu Yihan had initially thought that it was strange, but now that he saw that she was frightened, he immediately softened his heart and hugged her in his arms. He rubbed the back of her head and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. One won't let you get hurt." Su Yingxue felt a soothing warmth in her heart. Chapter 157. Chu Xiuwen was heavily injured, however. She had just confirmed something. These 2 lions weren't from Upper Forest Court's hunting grounds. They were trained to hunt her. Dr. Su! Dr. Su, are you okay?" Lin Cici's booming voice reached them, and Su Yingxue quickly distanced herself from Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan hadn't finished hugging her, and gave her a dissatisfied pinch on her little face. Lin Cici rode her horse over and greeted Chu Yihan. "Greetings, Your Highness." Then, she noticed the 2 lion heads and the separated lion body. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, Dr. Su, you took down 2 lions." Su Yingxue was speechless. Lin Cici held her in high regard. She smiled wryly, thinking of saying that Chu Yihan did the killing. Chu Yihan unexpectedly handed her the sword. "Hold on to this." Su Yingxue received it in a daze. Then Chu Yihan left, leaving her and Lin Cici to be discovered by the palace guard who followed them. Lin Cici was overjoyed, her laughter unable to be contained. "Dr. Su, you're incredible. I've been hunting so many times, and never bagged a fierce beast. Teaming up with you this time was such a stroke of luck. And that 3rd prince. Ha ha ha." Lin Cici's laughter echoed through the forest, a testament to her genuine happiness. Su Yingxue pretended not to know and asked, "How's the 3rd prince?" "He wet his pants. The tiger nearly had his head off. If it weren't for the 7th prince's arrow hitting the tiger's eye, would be attending his funeral right now." When Lin Cici spoke, her relief was palpable. For her cousin, and for the girls who had suffered at the hands of the 3rd prince. Su Yingxue smiled knowingly. As she and Lin Cici emerged from the forest, they spotted Sheng Ping not far off. Sheng Ping, usually downcast, now had a smile on his face when he saw Su Yingxue. Their gazes met in the air, and Sheng Ping respectfully saluted her from a distance. Su Yingxue nodded, and the two shared an unspoken understanding. Lin Cixi and Su Yingxue returned with a full load. Lin Aoyan was happy when he saw this. He patted Lin Cixi's shoulder and laughed. As expected of my daughter. Cixi, you've made me proud. Of course. But father, the fierce beast was taken down by Dr. Su. Next time, 111 hunt a tiger for you, and make a tiger skin coat. Lin Cixi was straightforward and honest, making sure Su Yingxue received credit. Su Yingxue held Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword, her smile tinged with shyness. Su Yingxue, are you okay? I heard you encountered a lion. Chu Qingye rushed over in a disheveled state, still clad in his hunting attire. When he had saved Chu Xiuwen earlier, Chu Xiuwen had already been sent for treatment due to his serious injuries. He also had injuries on his body, but after hearing the news about Su Yingxue, he could not control his feet. Su Yingxue's face turned cold when she saw him. Thank you for your concern, 7th Prince. I'm fine. Chu Qingye heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that she was fine. However, he frowned when he saw the sword in her hand. That's Qingfeng's sword. His imperial uncle's prized sword. How did it end up in Su Yingxue's possession? Did he save Su Yingxue? A surge of intense jealousy gripped Chu Qingye's heart. If it wasn't for the delay in saving Chu Xiuwen, he would have rushed in to save Su Yingxue. Dr. Su, you're truly brave. Consort Xiang was supported by Chu Mingyuan. She had a smile on her face that always made people feel relaxed. Chu Mingyuan went to see Chu Xiuwen. He was originally in a bad mood, but Consort Xiang accompanied him and spoke a few words along the way, immediately dispelling his worries. Chapter 158. Su Yingxue wins in addition. When he saw Su Yingxue and Lin Cixi return with a full load, Chu Mingyuan stroked his beard and laughed. Indeed, women can be just as capable. Emperor, Dr. Su and one brought back the most prey, and Dr. Su even took down 2 lions. Does that mean we've won the competition? Lin Cixi's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Cixi, Lin Aoyan pulled her back worriedly. Chu Xiuwen had just been injured, and Lin Cixi claiming credit like this might make Chu Mingyuan lose face. Chu Mingyuan's expression darkened slightly. Emperor, you have spoken. You won't go back on your words, will you? Miss Lin and I won, so we should be rewarded. Su Yingxue was even more direct in asking for a reward. Her boldness outshone Lin Cixi's and subtly covered for her. Though Chu Mingyuan seemed displeased, the matter of the reward was settled. He couldn't let others down just because his son was injured. He waved his hand, maintaining a smile. I hereby declare that this year's spring hunt winners are Lin Cixi and Su Yingxue. Wow. Thank you, Emperor. Dr. Su, we won. We won. Lin Cixi enthusiastically hugged Su Yingxue and shouted. Her enthusiasm infected many presents. Even those who had previously looked down on them had to admire them now, and plenty of others showed appreciative looks. Chu Jinling and noble consort Xiao were also watching from the Imperial Fusion platform. Chu Jinling's eyes lit up. Aunt Su, Yingxue is truly amazing. Absolutely. A capable girl from a prestigious family. How could she get hurt by mere beasts? Noble consort Xiao was smiling, her words aimed at the Empress. The Empress' face turned green. Aside from her concern for Chu Xiuwen, she had to maintain her dignity as the Empress. But noble consort Xiao was taunting her. Seeing the Empress' dissatisfaction, noble consort Xiao was pleased. She held Chu Jinling's hand and casually said, Linger, you must open your eyes and respect those outstanding talents. Don't target them with bias. Otherwise, you'll end up hurting yourself. Chu Jinling knew his mother was provoking the Empress again. He simply smiled obediently and replied, Yes, one understand. The Empress couldn't contain her frustration and began quarreling with noble consort Xiao as if venting. Noble consort Xiao, what do you mean? Who are you implying? Are you targeting my son? I didn't say that. Why is the Empress in such a hurry to assume? What's with the baseless accusations? Noble consort Xiao, it's obvious you're doing it intentionally. Empress, don't be so hasty to pin blame on others. It's akin to a tiger chasing after the 3rd prince without heeding consequences. Ha ha ha. Noble consort Xiao, what did you just say? Chu Mingyuan heard their argument, but chose to ignore it. Consort Xiang mentioned she was a bit tired, so he escorted her to rest. As he was leaving, his gaze brushed over Su Yingshi's hand, carrying a profound meaning. This glance served as a reminder to Su Yingxue. She had to return the sword to Chu Yihan. The Qingfeng sword was no ordinary weapon. It was Chu Yihan's cherished sword, a companion in battles, a prized possession. Su Yingxue ignored these people who were flattering her, and went to look for Chu Yihan with the sword. Just as she reached the doorway, she bumped into Emochi. Emochi was taken aback, looking as if he had seen a ghost. "Miss Su, is your highness here? I've come to return his sword." Su Yingxue held out the Qingfeng sword with both hands. Chapter 159. Red Lotus Ambush. However, Emochi's expression was filled with terror as he stepped back. "Your highness is not here, but the sword. Miss Su, you can hold on to it and return it to your highness tomorrow." The blade still bore traces of unwashed blood. Su Yingxue didn't understand why Emochi's eyes were so fearful, but she glanced at the sword and indeed, it was stained. If she were to return it, she should at least clean and polish it before doing so. Wouldn't it be impolite otherwise? On the eastern side of the upper forest court there's a spring. Su can go there to clean the sword. Emochi kindly offered a location. Su Yingxue smiled. "Thank you." Just as she was about to leave, Emochi let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, she turned back with the sword, and Emochi's heart jumped to his throat. "Miss Su, what's the matter now? Why are you so frightened of me?" Su Yingxue had been wondering about this since earlier. Emochi was Chu Yihan's right-hand man. His gaze wasn't this erratic when he looked at her before. Why did he now look like he had seen the king of the underworld? Emochi's mouth twitched awkwardly. "Miss Su, aside from your highness, only the deceased have touched that sword." A deadly touch. Now that she was carrying Chu Yihan's sword, he was probably scared out of his wits. This time, it was Su Yingxi's turn to feel awkward. She was holding the sword, and it seemed she had to go. But after she left, she turned back and reminded Emochi, "Your breathing is irregular, and your internal injuries are severe. It's better to rest well, and reduce the dosage of atractylodes, macrocephala and mugwort. Take care of yourself." Emochi was dumbfounded. Had Su Yingxue diagnosed him from a distance? Before he could even say thank you, Su Yingxue had already disappeared. She went to the back mountain to clean the sword. Ziwei followed her. Su Yingxue, squatted by the stream, scooped up the clear water and meticulously wiped away the bloodstains from the blade. When she noticed the ancient and mysterious patterns on the sword, a sense of admiration surged within her. It was said that the Qingfeng sword ranked among the top 3 treasures in the armament list. An ancient secret, it had not decayed over the years due to being soaked in so much blood. As a result, those with lower martial skills couldn't wield it, and couldn't suppress the sword's ominous aura. Yet Chu Yihan had managed to tame it. Su Yingxi's respect for Chu Yihan overflowed. She was so absorbed in her task that Ziwei had to repeat 3 times in a hoarse voice, "Danger." Only then did she snap out of it. Ziwei and her had retreated to the stream. The small waterfall was concealed by dense forest, and now, it was crowded with people. They all carried a murderous aura. Su Yingxue could sense that they were assassins, just like Ziwei. "Let's go to the Silver Moon Pavilion," Ziwei whispered to her. Su Yingxi's eyes darkened. As expected, the Silver Moon Pavilion hadn't given up on pursuing her. "Su Yingxue, where do you think you can run to this time?" A soft, mocking laughter sounded. Her seductive face was laced with scorn. Clad in a long gown embroidered with a fiery red 7-petal lotus, she was exceptionally eye-catching in the twilight. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. "Pavilion Master Hong Lian, you went to great lengths to target me, but I'm sorry to inform you that I've taken your lions as rewards." Hong Lian's tone turned cold. Miss Su is indeed clever, but those 2 beasts were just too useless. A faint smile tugged at the corners of Su Yingxi's lips. Beasts are only as good as their master. A malicious glint flashed in Hong Lian's eyes. Su Yingxue was essentially calling her useless. "Su Yingxue, do you truly believe you can escape today?" Hong Lian waved her hand. and the 12 hidden figures emerged from the shadows. Chapter 160. Poisoned her eyes. Su Yingxia's heart skipped a beat. There were so many people. Ziwei shielded her, and seeing her counting the figures, he promptly informed her, 19. How do you know? Su Yingxia leaned against his shoulder, her exquisite eyes brimming with curiosity. Because he used to be one of them, the finest assassin of our Silver Moon Pavilion. Hong Lian smiled, her fingers trailing along a strand of hair that fell to her right. He's number 1. And these are the remaining 19. They're ranked based on their abilities from 1 to 20. What number 1? His name is Ziwei. Su Yingxia retorted coldly to Hong Lian while guarding her food. Ziwei. Hong Lian's lips curled into a mocking smile. Having a name doesn't change anything. He's still just an assassin. Unworthy of being human. Su Yingxia. Care to guess how long number 1 here can hold out against the remaining 19? Hong Lian's tone carried a strong threat. Su Yingxia understood that Ziwei alone couldn't possibly prevail against these formidable 19. Her palms were moist with sweat. In this critical moment, she mentally called out to Little Ginseng. Little Ginseng. Little Ginseng, are you awake? Come out now. Little Ginseng. It had remained silent towards her for a while now. No matter how much she called, Little Ginseng didn't respond. Could it be that she was truly about to fall into Hong Lian's hands this time? Run, you! Ziwei disengaged from the fight with the 19 assassins and shoved Su Yingxia away. Su Yingxia was blocked by Hong Lian. With deep-seated resentment already harbored, Hong Lian's jealousy was further fueled by the sight of Su Yingxia wielding the Qingfeng sword. Flames of envy surged within her. You dared to steal his sword. Su Yingxia, you're seeking death. Su Yingxia raised her sword to parry, swiftly turning around. The sword's edge sliced through the 7-petal lotus on Hong Lian's dress. She raised an eyebrow provocatively. Who can steal his belongings? He gave this to me. Nonsense. No one is allowed to touch your highness' precious sword. Anyone who has touched it is dead. Hong Lian bellowed. But I'm still alive and well, aren't I? Su Yingxia pointed her sword at Hong Lian. The gleaming blade reflected Hong Lian's contorted face, distorted by jealousy. Hong Lian's sharp fingers reached out, directly aiming for Su Yingxia's throat. As the master of the Silver Moon Pavilion, Su Yingxia could only withstand Hong Lian's onslaught for about 15 minutes, thanks to the Qingfeng sword. Her possession of the sword barely enabled her to fend off the attacks. As the sky grew darker, Su Yingxia called out, Ziwei! Ziwei promptly disengaged from the battle, racing to her side. Su Yingxia whispered in his ear. In a moment I'll release some powder. Well, run right away. Once we're through the woods, they won't dare to pursue us any longer. Ziwei nodded, his blood-streaked throat uttering a hoarse, okay. The two of them coordinated seamlessly. Hong Lian resumed her pursuit of Su Yingxia, eager to claim her head. However, Su Yingxia flung a handful of powder at her, effectively blinding her. This was a type of toxic powder Su Yingxia had experimented with based on her mother's notes. It was called chaotic flower. The chaotic flower seemed to enter the eyes. If it came into contact with the eyes, it would blind a person instantly, and their vision wouldn't fully recover for at least a month. Hong Lian was blinded, immediately covering her eyes and screaming, Su Yingxia, what have you done? Pavilion Master Hong Lian, you've attempted to kill me multiple times. This is my gift to you. Let's meet again next month. Su Yingxia laughed heartily and vanished alongside Ziwei. The remaining 19 individuals, without Hong Lian's command, dared not pursue further. They supported Hong Lian, whose eyes were red and swollen, overwhelmed by an intense burning pain that brought tears to her eyes. Chapter 161. Taking off without Hong Lian's orders, the remaining 19 people did not dare to chase after Su Yingxia. They supported Hong Lian. Hong Lian's eyes were red, and she could not open them. The burning pain made her cry nonstop. She clenched her fists tightly, her sharp nails piercing into her flesh. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, Su Yingxia, you and I are irreparable. Su Yingxia concealed Ziwei in her private chamber. Both of them were injured. with Ziwei's injuries being particularly severe. She retrieved the medicine box she had brought and took out all the medicines made from blood-clotting grass. The scent of blood emanating from Ziwei was overpowering. Su Yingxue approached the bed and commanded, "Take off your clothes." Ziwei didn't move. Su Yingxue, holding the medicine, repeated, "Hurry and undress. I need to apply the medicine for you." How much longer did he intend to endure such serious injuries? In the dim light, a hint of crimson appeared on Ziwei's cheek. "Ziwei, are you being disobedient?" Su Yingxue's expression grew serious, and her tone became firmer. Ziwei promptly removed his clothing. She had spoken with the authority of a master, leaving him no choice but to obey her command. Su Yingxue sighed as she applied the medicine. "Your old wounds haven't even healed yet, and now you've acquired new ones. When will you stop getting injured?" She looked at Ziwei's chest and back. His originally perfect figure was now without a single piece of good skin. There were many wounds caused by knives, spears, swords, and halberds. There was also a very ferocious scar on his chest. One could imagine how much pain he had suffered at that time. Su Yingxue remembered her carelessness earlier that day. She had already sensed the presence of the Silver Moon Pavilion's people. Yet she allowed Hong Lian to exploit the opportunity to attack her. Filled with guilt, she apologized to Ziwei. "I'm sorry. If one hadn't gone to clean the sword, you wouldn't have been so gravely injured." "No." Ziwei shook his head. Protecting her was his responsibility. "What do you mean no? Listen carefully when I apologize." "Yes," Ziwei muttered in a hoarse voice. Su Yingxue finally breathed a sigh of relief after tending to his injuries. As Ziwei dressed himself, the dark purple light in his eyes remained fixed on her. "Your injuries." Su Yingxue noticed a few cuts on her arms from Hong Lian's sharp claws. "They're not deep," she replied nonchalantly. "I'll take care of them," Ziwei stated calmly. "All right." Su Yingxue handed him the medicine and gauze, and Ziwei proceeded to bandage her wounds. Throughout the process, Su Yingxue clenched her teeth and realized that there was a reason Ziwei suffered so many injuries. Many of them were likely self-inflicted due to his violent tendencies. Once Ziwei had finished, he saw Su Yingxue biting her lip, her face slightly pale. He was concerned and asked, "Are your injuries serious?" Su Yingxue shook her head. "The injuries are minor, but you were a bit rough, Ziwei. In the future, if I'm not around, remember to go easy on yourself. Don't compound your injuries when others have harmed you." Ziwei's heart trembled strongly. His focus wasn't on the injuries, but on Su Yingxue's words. If she wasn't around in the future, a crack appeared in Ziwei's otherwise cold eyes. "You. Not here. There will inevitably be times when I'm not by your side. You must take care of yourself," Su Yingxue earnestly advised. "No," Ziwei replied in a cold tone and disappeared. Su Yingxue was taken aback. She didn't realize that her words had offended him. Did even assassins have tempers? However, she didn't have time to dwell on his mood. She had more important matters to attend to. She carefully stored Chu Yihan's Qingfeng sword and immediately set out to find Princess Shengping. Chapter 162. Her mother isn't Vietnamese. She feared that when she wasn't around, Chu Yihan might come to retrieve the sword. So, she instructed Jilan that she should only reveal her whereabouts if Chu Yihan specifically inquired about her. Princess Shengping was also waiting for Su Yingxue. There were several dishes laid out on her table, and when Su Yingxue arrived, she had just finished her meal. Shengping stood up and greeted her with a smile. Su Yingxue raised her hand to halt her. "Princess, there's no need for formalities between us. Are you satisfied with the third prince's fate today?" Liana knelt and kowtowed to Su Yingxue, still sobbing. "Thank you, Miss Su, for seeking justice for our princess. Our princess ate a bit more for dinner tonight." Su Yingxue nodded. "In that case, princess, can you tell me now?" Shengping invited her to sit by the bedside for their conversation. As they faced each other, Shengping couldn't help but admire Su Yingxue's dignified demeanor despite her injuries. She was prepared to share everything she knew. "Dr. Su's mother was likely my mother's best friend before they turned 10. When I was young, my mother introduced her friends to me one by one. The only one missing was the person who created the cloud patterns with her. So, you mean my mother and your mother haven't seen each other since they were 10? Su Yingsha's eyes narrowed, and she was filled with perplexity. Yes, and my mother's friend has a unique identity, unlike other nobles in the Yu Kingdom. She is not from the Yu Kingdom, Shengping emphasized. Su Yingxue stood up abruptly. If she's not from Yu Kingdom, what is her identity? She is the Grand Princess. Lianer suddenly interrupted her with a joyful expression, rushing in and panting. Princess Ninth Prince has arrived. Shengping's heart trembled, and she instinctively checked her appearance and attire. She went out to welcome Chu Yihan, but Chu Yihan walked past her and approached Su Yingxue, holding her hand as he asked, "Why are you here?" Su Yingxue was still lost in her thoughts about her mother's background, but with Chu Yihan's arrival, she changed the subject. "I'm here to check on the princess and see how she's recovering." Shengping echoed her with a soft hum. "Are you finished?" Chu Yihan inquired. Su Yingxue confirmed that she had completed her examination, and Chu Yihan took her away. Throughout their encounter, he never glanced at Shengping. However, Shengping followed them and watched as Chu Yihan and Su Yingxue walked away side by side until their figures disappeared. On the way, Chu Yihan's gaze was filled with concern. Mochi mentioned that you went to the stream to clean your sword. One went to investigate and found signs of an unresolved fight. Do you know what happened? Su Yingxue shook her head reflexively. Nothing happened. She had yet to figure out how to disclose her conflict with Hong Lian to Chu Yihan. After Ale, Hong Lian sought her mother's letter, and she had directly taken away Hong Lian's best assassin, which could be considered a significant feud. Furthermore, she still didn't know the nature of Chu Yihan's relationship with Hong Lian. She couldn't speak hastily. "Why are you injured?" Chu Yihan's brows furrowed deeply. "I was rolling around in the forest this afternoon. After one returned, I bandaged myself up." "It's nothing." Su Yingxue offered a well-intentioned white lie. She truly hadn't meant to deceive Chu Yihan. She simply didn't want him to worry. However, when she noticed that he wasn't leading them back to their residence, she inquired, "Where are you taking me?" "We're going to the Martial Virtue Hall. The Empress suspects that Chu Ziyuan's injury might be related to you and wants to conduct an investigation." Chapter 163. Chu Ziyuan's injury. Seeing Su Yingxue's slight stunned, he immediately placed his hand on her shoulder. His broad palm grasped her petite, rounded shoulder, and his deep voice reassured her, "Don't worry. With me here, even if Chu Xiuan is injured, it won't be a problem." Su Yingxue awkwardly chuckled. How did you manage to guess correctly again? However, this was a part of her deal with Shengping. If she told Chu Yihan, she would inevitably contradict her previous statements and have to disclose everything. Su Yingxue decided to endure it. The Martial Virtue Hall was splendid and brightly lit. The Empress had been crying by Chu Minjiwan's side. When she saw Su Yingxue enter, she pointed at her as if she had encountered an archenemy. "Emperor, it's her who caused Ziyuan's injury. Xiuan is so badly hurt. You must seek justice for him, Emperor." Her cries grew even more miserable. Chu Minjiwan's face remained cold, and he didn't pay much attention to her tears. There was even a hint of disgust in his eyes. Noble consort Xiao noticed this and lightly stroked her nails before speaking. "Empress, you should first inquire. What if you accuse someone wrongly? After all, the third prince is still unconscious." "Noble consort Xiao, what business is it of yours?" The Empress gritted her teeth and gave her a fierce glare with her eyes red from crying. Noble consort Xiao, gazing at her meticulously manicured and exquisite nails, snorted. "What? Even as a noble consort, don't I have the right to speak in front of the Emperor? I just want to make things difficult for you. Is that not allowed?" Noble consort Xiao thought. The Empress was so furious that her entire body trembled. Just as she was about to argue with noble consort Xiao, Chu Mingyuan sternly shouted, "Enough! Empress, didn't you suspect that Su Yingxue had something to do with Ziyuan's injury? Now in my presence, if you have evidence, present it." Su Yingxue tilted her head. It was evident to anyone in the hall that Chu Mingyuan was impatient with the Empress, who was seeking his help in this matter. Su Yingxue was also curious. Could the empress detect the musk scent left on her arrowhead? Yi, summon the court physicians. The empress wiped away her tears and waved her hand, instructing Chu Qingye to bring in 2 court physicians. Chu Qingye had just finished examining Chu Xiuwen. His face resembled a stormy sky. When he entered, he gave Su Yingxue a fierce glare. The 2 court physicians knelt in front of Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan first expressed concern. How is Ziyuan's condition? One of the court physicians replied, Emperor, the third prince's injuries are severe. He has been wounded by a fierce tiger in multiple places, and his leg bone was bitten. I'm afraid he will require several months of careful recuperation. Su Yingxue ruffled her hair. It seemed that she had been too lenient. Perhaps she should have used a heavier dose of musk scent. In that case, Chu Xiuwen would have lost half his life. Chu Mingyuan felt deeply for his son. He instructed the court physicians to take good care of him, and then inquired. The empress summoned you. What have you discovered on Xiuwen? Another older court physician spoke slowly. Emperor, on the surface, it appears that the third prince was wounded by a fierce tiger. However, one found something unusual in the wound on the third prince's face. In that wound, there was the scent of musk. In the midst of spring, when wild beasts are in heat, they would target the third prince upon detecting the musk scent. Therefore, I suspect that the third prince's severe injury was intentionally caused by someone. The slightly younger court physician beside him added. Furthermore, the third prince was injured and developed a fever. He kept mentioning that Su Yingxue harmed him. This matter is likely connected to Miss Su. Emperor, you have heard it, haven't you? With the testimony of the court physicians, it's evident that Xiuwen was poisoned by Su Yingxue. She has a ruthless heart and great audacity to have done such a cruel thing to Xiuwen. The empress hastily knelt in front of Chu Mingyuan and cried. Chapter 164. Su Yingxue can withstand your injustice? Su Yingxue raised her lips in a smile. Your Highness, are you perhaps too hasty in your judgment? Are you accusing me based solely on the court physician's testimony? Su Yingxue. Chu Mingyuan's voice deepened, carrying the authority of an emperor. Su Yingxue immediately knelt and spoke earnestly. Emperor, one have been wrongfully accused. I implore you to investigate this matter. Yi mentioned that when Xiuwen was unconscious, he repeatedly claimed that you harmed him. Were you with Xiuwen just before the tiger attacked him? Chu Mingyuan's deep gaze carried a sharp edge. While staring at Su Yingxue, he exerted considerable pressure. However, Su Yingxue maintained her straight posture while kneeling. Emperor, it is true that I and the third prince rode into the forest together. But what does that prove? Does it mean that it was my fault that the tiger attacked the third prince instead of me? A trace of grievance filled Su Yingxue's eyes. It's not your fault, Chu Yihan coldly affirmed. The cold glint in his eyes also contained a warning directed at Chu Mingyuan. Chu Mingyuan snorted, but had no intention of arguing with Chu Yihan. But the court physicians claimed that there was a musk scent on Ziyuan's wound. How do you explain that? You are a physician. You should be aware of the properties of musk. It's not uncommon for you to carry musk with you. Chu Mingyuan was much more incisive than the empress, hitting the nail on the head. Su Yingxue held her head high. Carrying muskiness is indeed not unusual. But if I wanted to harm the third prince, why would one harm myself as well? Today, the third prince was chased by a tiger, and I was chased by a lion. Could it be that one plotted against the third prince and had to sacrifice my own life? Noble consort Xiao, supporting her head lazily, chimed in. Miss Su, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Who would harm others and willingly sacrifice their own life? Moreover, one is a prince, and the other is the marquis' daughter. Chu Mingyuan pondered for a while, but couldn't find any fault in Su Yingxue's argument. However, the empress was sobbing hysterically. Emperor, the 2 court physicians are witnesses. Ziyuan's wound had a musky smell, and he repeatedly claimed that Su Yingxue harmed him. Xiuwen is a good child, and he would never lie. Emperor, even if you don't trust the court physicians, you can't distrust Xiuwen. Nonsense. I could also argue that he's deliberately framing her. Chu Yihan shot a cold look at the Empress. The Empress was infuriated. Ninth Prince, you're blatantly taking her side. I'm not. If Imperial sister-in-law isn't convinced, I can bring Chu Xiu in here and have him repeat it. When Chu Yihan became resolute, he wouldn't yield to anyone. The Empress was rendered speechless. Chu Qingye quickly intervened. Imperial uncle, you can't. My third brother is severely injured and unconscious. He can't withstand the jolts. Then can Suingxue withstand your accusations? Chu Yihan's dark eyes gazed over, provoking Chu Qingye's anger. Indeed, his imperial uncle was showing favoritism towards Suingxue. Enough, both of you be silent. Chu Mingyuan rubbed the space between his eyebrows and shifted his gaze onto Suingxue. She maintained a straight posture while kneeling, revealing no flaws. On the Empress' side, there was no substantial evidence, which only fueled his frustration. Suingxue, it's one thing for Xiuwen to say confused things, but can you truly explain the musk scent on his wound? Chu Mingyuan could only use this point to question Suingxue. Suingxue also thought of a reason. Emperor, may I inquire whether the tiger that chased after the third prince was male or female? Chu Mingyuan hadn't delved into this detail. He turned to Chu Qingye. It was a tigress, Chu Qingye replied. Chapter 165. Noble Consort Xiao is an interesting person. In that case, I thought about the possible presence of musk on the third prince's wound. Go on. Chu Mingyuan examined her closely. Just as the court physicians mentioned, spring is the mating season for wild beasts. Tigresses also need to mate, and they may carry traces of male musk. What's so unusual about it? It injured the third prince again. Is it so illogical for the third prince's wound to have musk on it? Suingxue blinked her big, watery eyes, sincerity filling them. After she spun such a tale, everyone present found no valid reason to refute her. Especially the court physicians who had just spoken. Their faces turned even greener, and they seemed to wish they could slap themselves. You're using sophistry. You're the one who harmed my son. The Empress was on the verge of hysteria. Suingxue had already said everything. So how could she be in the right? No, she couldn't be in the right now. Emperor, 1 a.m. willing to testify for Dr. Su. She did not intentionally harm the third prince. When Lin Cixi received the news, she rushed into the hall and knelt with Suingxue. Behind her, Lin Outyin, the demon who protected his daughter, also came. Emperor, Dr. Su is a benevolent doctor. She would never do anything to harm others. Moreover, she has no grudge against the third prince. Why would she harm the prince? This is a serious crime. Chu Mingyuan's already furrowed brows tightened even more. Nonsense. Lin Outyin and Lin Cixi, both of you have been bribed by Suingxue, haven't you? I will not forgive you. The Empress roared hysterically. At this moment, the only difference between her and the shrew in the market was a phoenix crown. Lin Cixi sneered and said, Father and one haven't been bribed. Ordinary people can't buy us. Lin Outyin affirmed that he was as steadfast as his daughter. Disappointed, Chu Mingyuan glanced at the Empress. All right, I've made my judgment. This matter has nothing to do with Suingxue. Suingxue, you may leave now. He firmly pronounced his decision and released Suingxue. The Empress was almost unhinged. Emperor, how can you do this? How can you let Suingxue go? She harmed Xiuwen. Xiuwen is our son. What else do you expect me to do? Do you have any evidence? Has anyone witnessed her harming Xiuwen firsthand? Do you want me to unjustly convict someone? Chu Mingyuan angrily shook off the Empress and turned to leave. Proceed to Consort Xiang's palace. His departure at this moment was a cutting remark, plunging deeply into the Empress' heart. Noble Consort Xiao observed the weeping Empress and felt some sympathy. Tisk tsk, Empress, it's better to return to the palace and rest early. This is truly embarrassing. Noble Consort Xiao, it's not your place to discuss my mother. Chu Qingye shouted at her. Noble Consort Xiao sneered, disdainful of arguing with someone of lower rank. However, as she passed by Suingxue, she beamed radiantly. Miss Su's performance today was truly splendid. One have a reward for you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Su Yingxue found the reward puzzling, but sensed that noble consort Xiao was an intriguing person. Let's go, Dr. Su, I'll escort you back. Once everyone departed, Lin Cece held Su Yingxue's hand joyfully, reminiscent of a child. She didn't feel any pressure from Chu Yihan whatsoever. While walking, she smiled at Su Yingxue. Dr. Su, you're amazing. You taught the third prince a lesson. He could only suffer in silence. Just thinking about it makes me feel better. Suddenly, Su Yingxue sensed an immense pressure behind her. She turned around and saw Chu Yihan looking at her with a dark expression. Chapter 166. Imperial Uncle Ferocious. She promptly pushed Lin Cece away and cautioned her. Next time you do something wrong, don't reveal your identity to others. Chu Yihan might appear out of nowhere. Lin Cece was still a little stunned. Suddenly, she felt a coldness that was like a 10,000-year-old iceberg. She turned around and saw Chu Yihan, and her legs trembled. Remembering that Chu Yihan was Chu Ziyuan's imperial uncle, she fled like a rabbit. Only Su Yingxue was left standing alone under the moonlight. She faced Chu Yihan alone. As soon as Chu Yihan walked over, Su Yingxue obediently placed her hands in front of her chest. Chu Yihan did not speak, but the cold air and pressure he was releasing grew heavier and heavier as time passed. Your Highness, if you intended harm to Chu Xiuwen, why didn't you inform me? Chu Yihan questioned sternly. What? Su Yingxue was so surprised that her mind was filled with question marks. If you had let me assist you, I could have directly taken Chu Ziyuan's life. Su Yingxue was rendered speechless. This imperial uncle, wasn't that too ruthless? Your Highness, in truth, one didn't want to harm him. One simply found him distasteful. Cece also mentioned that one of her cousins was harmed by Chu Xiuwen. How loathsome is it for someone like him to lead such a dazzling life, just because he's a prince? Su Yingxue gritted her teeth, her face radiating hatred. She silently prayed, Your Highness, please don't see through my act. Don't see through it. That's right. I intentionally harmed Chu Xiuwen. But I can't tell you. Never mind, don't harm yourself in the future. Chu Yihan gently ruffled her hair, as if consoling a child. Su Yingxue lifted her head and met his profound gaze. His eyes resembled an abyss, dark and unfathomable, tinged with coldness and iciness. Yet she couldn't resist wanting to gaze at him a bit longer. The more she looked, the more she desired. Under the moonlight, the tenderness in his eyes was enchanting. Su Yuro observed their interactions from a distance. She tore her handkerchief in frustration, suppressing her anger. Why? What gave Su Yingxue the right? She had stolen the limelight at this spring banquet. She had captured Chu Qingye's attention and ensnared his heart. She even made Chu Yihan so partial to her. What right did she have? Su Yingxue, just you wait. Su Yuro clenched her teeth. She didn't return to the manor that night and hurried straight to Lu Shilin's place. The next day, Su Yingxue resumed her medical consultations and headed to Tongchang Medical Center. She had been absent for 2 days, and Manager Qi was tirelessly busy in the clinic. Upon Su Yingxue's return, Manager Qi presented a series of plans. He suggested that the clinic could be expanded to twice its size, admit more patients, open additional wards, and even establish a branch in the western part of the city to revive Tongchang Medical Center's reputation. Manager Qi was a capable and detail-oriented individual. Su Yingxue glanced at the plan he had formulated and readily approved it. After Manager Qi explained further, he hesitated and said, Miss, the idea is excellent, but in the long run, our income might become somewhat tight, especially since you allocated a substantial sum to Miss Wu for opening the Thousand Jiao Pavilion. What about the income from the grain and oil shop? Allocate it all for investment in the clinic. And Sister Jinyan's initial investment mustn't fall short. Even if she doesn't request it, check with her across the street. If she still needs money, you must not be stingy. You can only give her more, not less. Understand? Su Yingxue urged. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.